go. Now in the cage, 3 rounds of mixed martial arts in the welterweight division. This bout is sponsored in part by Iron Book. Our referee in charge of this bout, Chris the Crippler Lila. And now, introducing to you first on my left, fighting out of the blue corner, he is wearing the Den colors, blue and gray, training out of the Den Training Center in Yorba Linda by way of Paramount. He weighed in 170 pounds. His record, 2 wins, 2 losses, with both wins coming by way of stoppage. Ladies and gentlemen, introducing Mauricio Hernandez. His opponent across the cage on my right, fighting out of the red corner. He is wearing blue trunks. He is training out of Uprise MMA in Venice by way of Los Angeles. He weighed in 168 pounds. His record, 1 win with 3 losses. Ladies and gentlemen, introducing Tomislav Smith. All right, fans, once again, 3 rounds of mixed martial arts in the welterweight division.
All right, John, we're getting ready to watch what is our 4th fight of 13 tonight. We thank you for joining us. We're stoked to see this next one, and it looks like right now, Mauricio is ready to get to business, dude.
Yeah, he's got that look in his eyes, just like you said. That walkout, and you can see they both run right to the center of the cage, touch gloves, and they're looking to get it started.
All right, some nice exchanges to begin with, and both of them, you know, they have experience, so now it's just going to be a matter of seeing who's able to pull off more of that experience in this cage.
Yeah, Mauricio, nice leg kick there to start things off. Slav got some jerky feints going on here, looking to close the distance. Gauge where his opponent's at.
I mean, he's definitely not giving him a moment to think like he can get his timing down. He's erratic with the movement just to try and make sure that if he feels like he can get a punch in here, he's going to have to work for it.
Yeah, if he can get Mauricio to bite on one of these feints or make him think that maybe a punch is coming or get him to block preemptively, start to recognize some of his patterns, sure that's where he can start holes in the defense of Mauricio. But it's interesting. It's like rushing right up the crowd this position where he's still in striking distance, but trying to skirt in and out of it.
You know, the interesting thing about what Tomislav is doing is that you almost get a sense that maybe Mauricio's hesitating. As he's trying to figure out like the timing of it. That's the first like hit that I saw in terms of one that he's like, all right, I think maybe now I have the timing.
Yeah, Mauricio had a good leg kick, but that right straight, that one was a good. I think that's what he was doing. I believe he's sitting there trying to get his timing down, trying to see exactly where Tomislav's going to go. Now that he's starting to, starting to find his range, he's now throwing a little bit more freely, and he's connecting.
I mean, just look at it. Mauricio's almost studying here, and that's when you see Tomislav trying to switch it up on him and saying, all right, now you're starting to feel these feints. You're starting to get that timing. Let me see if I can get this takedown, and pushes him up against the cage.
Yeah, I like that from Tomislav. It really keep Mauricio guessing. All of his feints, none of them really involved deep level changes, and there he just did a really low level change, shot in out of nothing. And he was able to get all the way to the legs, but Mauricio having a good defense, pulling up the underhook. It wasn't an over-under. Now, double unders for a second. Looking for a front headlock, but this is going to allow Tomislav to connect the hands. This should be a takedown from Tomislav. He should be able to lift him away from the cage, put him down on the mat.
And you know what's great is he kind of understood, and this is from Mauricio. Ooh, that was a nice switch there, though. Yeah, for a split second, you saw that Mauricio said, this guillotine's not going to work here, but maybe if I readjust, maybe I got something here. And now working for the close guard a little bit better, but I do feel the sense that with the time and the amount, you're going to see no finish there. But both the gentlemen kind of got what they wanted. Tomislav got the takedown.
I think that was smart from Tomislav. I think he was maybe a little bit worried about that front choke, the guillotine, and for good reason. I mean, there you can see Mauricio fell right to his back and tried to submit him with the guillotine. Waiting till the last 10 seconds or so to actually finish that takedown. Then even if you're in the guillotine, you could probably withstand it. Yeah. So it looks good to the judges. You get the takedown, you end up on top. You're fighting out of a guillotine, but it's not necessarily the biggest threat in the world, potentially, depending on the judges.
And if I'm guessing right now, I think you saw Mauricio's coach kind of going over some last-minute discussions of if you get this is what I need if you're trying to get that guillotine.
Yeah.
Because it may come back in handy if he's going to shoot in again.
Yeah, one thing that kind of worried me about Mauricio's guillotine there is that he's doing the really old-school version of pushing with his legs, which can work. It's worked before, but that's also the exact way that you push your opponent out of the choke. So it's much harder to get that to work if you're doing that old-school pushing guillotine as opposed to a pulling one, where you pull them in with your legs and put weight on them. But I guess we'll see if he goes for it in round number 2.
One of my favorite things about jiu-jitsu, most everything can work.
It's true.
It can.
You get a good enough athlete, you can just make stuff up.
Absolutely. Now, I wonder in this particular thing if you're going to see Tomislav go in for a takedown, because he's done such a good job of kind of baiting him with some of these feints with the hands that I think now that you're seeing Mauricio figure out the timing, I think you might want to start pulling the trigger on those takedowns a little bit earlier.
Yeah, Mauricio is really starting to find his range here and tee off. So this gets a little bit dangerous for Tomislav. Tomislav might have something real sneaky up his sleeve, but it's nothing that I've seen so far. The feints are good, but if I had to guess, the game plan now is just to get Mauricio biting on these feints and shoot in.
I think the idea is what purpose do they serve and what could better serve you. So if the idea is you want to keep this up, you may be inviting him to connect more. But we've seen what you can do when you can finish and you can get that double. And especially if you utilize that cage. I think we've seen good evidence here. That was a good strike, though. So I would tell you this. In that last round, we did see he was able to maintain that position with Mauricio. Even when Mauricio started to push him against and was able to get out, he got put right back in that position. So this is where I feel Tomislav feels very much at home.
Yeah, and you can see Tomislav does get Mauricio up against the fence, but I liked what Mauricio was doing there. He's using that the overhook and a cross post. He's trying to move away from the cage, get his positioning back. He's got you can see Tomislav trying to push that cross post off. Now it's turned into a collar tie. Maybe trying to duck underneath it. Here's the cross post again, using that elbow, he's trying to box Tomislav out. Goes for a foot trip, and now they're out in the open, so throwing some punches. Gonna go for this double leg takedown, gets it, but now we're in guillotine country. See if Mauricio has fixed the angle that he needs on this. I like what Tomislav's doing. He should be trying to elongate his neck, drive his head to the mat, and now he's gotten completely out of it with hand fighting, so this is a much better position for Tomislav.
But keep in mind, okay, so from that position, up until there in this round, most of the strikes were going on Mauricio's side. But you get the takedown, but that entire time that he was pushing him up against the cage, you're not really getting their numbers up.
Yes.
So that could very well be a round that you could have positionally beat your opponent, but now maybe you don't beat him because there was also a submission attempt along with those strikes that connected. So it brings that margin of who wins a round all that thinner.
Yeah, and you just never know what the judges are going to score. And here, Mauricio looking for an armbar potentially.
Yep.
The end of the round, we'll have to take this to a third and final one. Curious to see what the corners are going to tell their fighters.
Well, one thing that you did see was you looked over at Mauricio and you saw him looking over at his coach to be like, hey, we talked about this. We literally went over that detail for that guillotine over on the side, and that's my assumption, but it looked like that's what he was trying to go over. And guess what? We found ourselves in that position, and he got out this time. So, it's a good defensive maneuver to use, but it does eat up some of that clock. when you end up going the wrong way. The other thing that we did see him do was start to close the guard, which was a better start than he had the last time. So I would say those two things were a little bit better, but in terms of like, man, you really need to get this finish, you know that Mauricio wants to keep this standing up for as long as possible.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's just very clearly winning the stand-up. And he looks good in the grappling, but he's getting taken down. He's ended up on his back. And I'm not confident in his guillotine offense from there. So I would much rather have him just try to work the stand-up and then fight more on the feet to try to stay standing.
You know, I forgot. I had put a note about this one in particular. On our Instagram, we had put up 2 grown-ass men aren't playing around, and that's how we were telling people about this fight. So, you know, that was not misleading. It was 100% accurate. These grown-ass men not playing around.
Oh, good. That was a good leg kick from Mauricio. I wish he would have thrown some more of these. I mean, he's thrown them in the first round, at least a couple, and he landed them. But really want them to start slowing down your opponent, so that way already by the last round, you're starting to feel those effects and not being able to shoot in as well. And here, jumping on this front choke again, I would just rather have him defend the takedown. Because now the hands are connected. For sure, he's going to get taken down on this one. If Tomislav can get his hips in and start elevating or drag Mauricio away from the cage, this is really, really bad.
You might notice something here, which is that Tomislav didn't waste as much time going for this takedown. Now I think his team was telling him, hey, let's try and secure this. Now we're in a better spot in terms of trying to finish this guillotine. But you notice Tomislav already trying to address that grip. And at the very least, if we keep this guard closed, we can make sure that it's harder for him to just pop right on out.
Yeah, this guillotine looks better than the other ones that he was going for, so there actually might be a finish here.
And you're seeing his back just start to turn red, so it is having some kind of effect at the very least.
Tomislav, it looks like he's trying to pull out of this, which I don't like unless you can hand fight pull out. I would rather have him extend his spine, put his forehead on the mat, and drive into it, and then you try to get through the legs from there, right? But it buys you more time that way. It actually takes less by pushing into it than pulling out. But he was able to hand fight and pull his head out, so now he's completely out of danger.
You know what was great was just watching him also position his head just a little bit in that awkward position that you can't keep it with your arm. So he did an excellent job in terms of moving, because most people, they do freeze up in that position, and he just stayed very calm all throughout the times that he has been put into that guillotine. And now he's able to just kind of push him up against the cage and not really necessarily lose this position.
Yeah, and I'm not sure if it was Tomislav that was doing a great job of keeping Mauricio flat on his back, because you want to be on side when you're going for these guillotines on bottom, or if it was Mauricio just not making the right angle. But whatever it was, it definitely helped for Tomislav to get out of that. Now he's just in the close guard. Mauricio's looking to throw a leg around, maybe like just kind of pendulum a leg to throw it over for a armbar, I'm assuming. But it's pretty tough. Once you can start walking up the cage, that helps, but he's got 15 seconds left, and Tomislav's on top and has been throwing punches, so this has got to look pretty good for the judges.
Well, you figure you get the takedown, you work from inside of the guard. This round is pretty much yours, so now it's just a matter of how did we interpret the last couple rounds.
Yeah, curious to see, but I mean, this one, I would say you'd be really hard-pressed to not give it to Tomislav based on the way that it ended.
So interesting fight. I mean, listen, you know, whenever we're talking about these things, when we see these fights go to the distance and then you get the judges' scorecards on them, it's so interesting because, especially on the amateur level, you look at it and you go, man, you do such good work, it could easily be taken away. It's just a matter of outpointing your opponent and being very, very strategic on how you do it. And sometimes you're making it up on the fly and trying to make it work, and then sometimes you're just like, hey man, I'm stuck. You know, he took me down, and there's not a real good way to get up.
It can be tough.
It's a tough day at the office, and somebody's really good at taking you down. You go, yeah, I might have to burn this one.
Yeah, and I think Tomislav had a really good, or at least started sticking to the game plan really well in the second and the third round. Like, just realizing, once he realized that the choke threat wasn't as big, and then realizing that he wasn't having as much success on the feet, just shooting in and trying to get that takedown, and he was successful with that. And
I just kept thinking in that second round, if he had started those takedowns a little bit earlier, I think it might have switched a little bit more, because, you know, the hard part is when somebody feels like you're not going to take them down, it does, you can lull them into that confidence, but the problem is that, you know, we had the evidence, I felt like, from that first round where I'm like, I think you can get this takedown, dude. And now looking at it and you see it happen, now you start to kind of wonder, like, is this enough? Did I do enough to make it in these judges' decisions? And even though you end on a good note, how do they interpret rounds 1 and 2?
Yeah, I'm really curious to see how that goes. I would love, I know they don't have like an official CompuStrike thing that for us to see or the audience, but man, I would be really curious to know those numbers, just to know how many significant strikes were landed before and after the takedown.
Yes. And again, sometimes the best way to avoid getting hit is a good takedown.
Yeah.
So sometimes it's in your best interest to say, you know, as much as I want to play this game and get drawn out to a nice standout shootout with you, it is a strategically better
Let's
idea
keep this
to
on the ground where I'm not getting hurt.
Go ahead, push you down, even if we're not both scoring a million points on these strikes.
Absolutely. Looks like they've got the official decision.
Ladies and gentlemen, after 3 rounds of action, once again, let's give both fighters a big round of applause. This bout is sponsored by Iron Hook. Ladies and gentlemen, after 3 rounds of action, we go to the scorecards. We have a split decision. Judge at cage side, Don Howard scores the bout 29-28 in favor of Hernandez. Judge at cage side, Jackie Dickens scores the bout 29-28 in favor of Smith. And judge at cage side, Michael Bell scores the bout 29-28 in favor of our winner by split decision, the blue corner, Mauricio Hernandez.
That's right, fight fans. Mauricio Hernandez, brother.
You know, we ran into each other on the parking lot, and I promised you I'd get to finish so we could talk after. Good to be here. Always nice to meet you. I want to thank Ben Jones, I can now. Ben Jones, my entire team. I wanted to take a second to thank everybody who's working in the back. You know, SparStar staff. Without you guys, we wouldn't be here. So I appreciate you guys.
So what's next for you, brother?
I didn't take much damage like the last fight, thank God. I'll be back in the gym on Monday. We'll plan, and hopefully we'll be here for the next SparStar.
That's right, fight fans. Make some noise for Mauricio Hernandez.
Well, there's a reason why when we say it could be close.
Yes.
You know.